Hi guys, it's Harry from HTL Finance, and in this video we will be covering gold, specifically on the Trading212 investment platform. What I'll be covering in this video is partly just a bit generally about gold as an investment, but more specifically how you can also invest in it through Trading212 and similar platforms, some of the benefits and drawbacks of this. But as I always say, this is not investment advice. So I think for anyone that has been in the investment space for any period of time, they would have come across gold as an investment class or as an investment that's very popular, which falls into the general commodities bucket alongside things such as silver. This bucket of assets basically means that what you're investing in is either physically the item itself, or you're buying a derivative or some form of financial product that tracks the rough value growth and decline of the physical asset itself. Gold, for many reasons, I'm not an expert on it, but there are many reasons why gold has value. Obviously, as a material, it's very malleable and all this, the color of it as well. But I think generally it's perceived as being something that's expensive. People know what gold is. It's a scarce resource. I think scarcity is key, obviously, in driving supply and demand. And for that reason, people have always wanted to hold gold, and it's been a useful investment for people. Previously, really what you'd have to do is have it physically, but there's issues with that, such as it could be stolen, for example. And now through online platforms, there are many ways that you can track the cost of gold without having to physically own it. And through platforms such as Trading212, you can hold fractional shares and invest in it at a very low cost. We will see this in a bit when I actually jump onto the Trading212 platform, but gold does, as an investment, is one of the, least volatile investments that generally you can make because of the, constant demand for gold. It is seen as an inflation hedge and generally is seen as an investment that we expect to go up over time. It's got a good track record of steadily increasing historically and in future. But this will not be at an incredibly high rate, and it will also be relatively non-volatile. This makes it a good inflation hedge to get 2 or 3% per annum, as an example, to hedge against inflation and minimize the effects of that. And I think that's why a lot of people bring it into their portfolios. Also because it isn't directly correlated to a lot of other asset classes. It does sort of sit on its own, but it is in times of volatility, when the VIX is high, that people look to hold gold as a safe space investment. And that's a really important thing, I think, to realize when looking at gold as an investment. I also think along these lines, gold generally is something that people probably only hold part of their portfolio in. Holding entirely gold would be slightly strange, but it also does depend on what you want from your investment and what stage of life you are in. I think younger people generally, like myself, wouldn't touch gold or look really in any way to invest in it. Older people, I think, definitely this would be more within their remit. So I've got Trading212 open, and if we can see it here, I've got it up on my iPad. You have on your home page the most popular ETFs, equity ETFs. These are obviously based on whatever you select, but through Trading212, if you go into commodity ETFs, we see iShares physical gold, also physical silver, along with other things such as coffee, things like crude oil are other commodity ETFs, but gold really is the sort of main one that main commodity that people trade. If you also click on the search icon, you can also type in gold, and what this will do is give you a more wide list of gold assets and things that include the word gold, which includes some things that are view only for me based on whatever account you have. But there are a lot of companies with gold in their name, for example, who you're not investing in the asset itself, but you are investing or can invest in a company that may mine gold or work heavily with it, and will definitely be positively correlated with the movement of gold as a commodity. So what I've put in is gold and then iShares. iShares is a provider of ETFs, and what we have here is a lot of different options. We see iShares Gold AC, which means accumulating, meaning that any dividends are invested into the cost or value of the asset itself. We also have physical gold. I think it's also important to say here, and this is just a general, investment advice type thing, or something you need to be aware of when investing, is to look at the exchange that it's on. On the left, we see Swiss exchange on the stock exchange, and also the currencies as well that we can see on the current price, because you may be charged FX fees. I think Trading212 is 0.15% on all foreign exchange. You would also then be exposed to foreign exchange risk against whatever currency you live, or GBP or euro you're denominated in. So if I click on iShares Gold, what we can see here is this is a dollar denominated asset. We say it says the fund seeks to track the return of the gold spot price, which is what the ETF is aiming to track. So what they're trying to do is mirror the movement in gold, and that through this you can buy a £1 fractional share and invest in gold without having to hold it physically. Though for that, and this is the same that really goes for any ETF, there is an expense ratio of 0.19%, which is low, but it does exist. And it is important that will, over time, if you ever go on a cumulative sort of calculator, things like moving from 0.19% expense ratio up to 0.5 can make absolutely huge impacts 10 or 20 years down the line to the value of your portfolio. We will see the AUM, which is the assets under management, of 720 million, which this means is quite a large ETF. And I think for iShares, they're a good, reputable provider. And then what we see in the bottom is the average annual return, or compound annual growth rate, if in other language, which we can see 16% in the last year, an average of 4.7 3 years, average of 10% over the last 5 years, and then 4.7 over a 10-year period. So I think this does touch on my earlier point that it generally isn't an absolutely huge returning asset class. 4.7% over the 10 years is probably slightly above the average inflation, which is why I say people use it as an inflation hedge. But yeah, and we also don't have a dividend yield here, which would impact things. But if we go on the Trading212, this hasn't been here for very long. It's only been here since July. But I think this sort of slowly upward trajectory without the massive peaks and troughs is what we all expect when we look at gold as an asset class. We can also look at iShares Gold Producers, which is again not gold itself, not physical gold, and will be probably slightly more volatile, but is tracking companies that are linked, their values are linked to gold. And here what we see, as we'd expect, is slightly more peaking and troughing. This is going back to mid-2022, where we have there probably a 35%, 40% drop before it started rallying really heavily recently. And this says this fund seeks to track the performance of an index composed of companies related to businesses engaged in the exploration and production of gold. P ratio 25, relatively high for a non-tech stock, but again, do your own research. Trading212 also does give price volatility sort of metrics, though I wouldn't overly read into these. Grouping volatility into low, medium, high is vastly simplifying the volatility and what that can mean for your portfolio. Here we've got average annual returns that are, again, the 10-year is roughly in line with what we've just seen before, but the peaking and troughing, the volatility is much more severe. And what we can see is the top 10 holdings. The sectors, which, material and then some cash or derivatives, that could be a gold ETF, could fall into the derivatives portion. And we see the different countries, again, through things like this. The US, you say the UK are relatively stable in terms of investment sort of geographies. Russia, Peru, China, they are, some of the volatility of this ETF will have been due to the location of some of these companies that they're invested in, due to things like tariffs, etc. The other interesting one really is looking at iShares physical gold. So gold at the top and then physical gold, which this says the fund only accepts gold that meets the London Bullion Market Association good delivery rules. This is investing in gold, but with a bit of a sort of higher ceiling or higher floor in terms of the quality. The bars also aim to comply with the LBMA's responsible sourcing program. And what we see here is lower expense ratio of 0.12. Again, similar average annual return, which you'd expect, given that these are all tracking the price of gold in some way, shape, or form. And this is much better. So what we see here is from 2015 onwards, very non-volatile stock. This, or an ETF, this would be, I think, for pretty much any other ETF over this period, probably even including the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100, really sort of top quality ETFs or indices, that they would have been far more volatile than this. And I think the main thing is looking in 2020 when, COVID, 16th of March 2020, that we actually had a probably 10-15% increase, whereas pretty much everything else dropped by 10 or 15, 20% at least. And that's because gold is a safe space asset. It is what people buy when they don't know what to buy. And that's something to think about for your portfolio. I hope this has been a useful video. Wanted to cover how you do it via Trading212, but also talk about gold as an investment in general. As I say, this is not investment advice. This is just me giving my opinions and sort of collating information that you can freely find online through various sources, and hopefully putting it into a really condensed, sort of feature-packed, data-rich video. I hope to expand these sorts of videos on Trading212 or any other investment platform such as IG. You can invest in gold similarly, just to talk about other asset classes, how things work, and how you can get involved. I am no way affiliated with Trading212. So I hope this video has been useful. Please, as I always say, please like, comment, share, subscribe. It really helps the channel, try and grow the channel. From the ground up, we've had to move away from technology content into finance, which is a lot more of an interest to me nowadays. But yeah, if you have any feedback or have any ideas for future videos, or any just comments on what you think about using gold as an investment or Trading212 the platform, or any other platforms for me to try, put them in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond and cover what needs to be covered in future videos. But it's been Harry from HTL Finance. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.